Hello and welcome back to Pass the Torch, Legacies in Jewelry. My name is Naja de Savandiste and I am your host today. Wherever you are in the world joining us, I'm so grateful you are here. Today we have David Geller joining the podcast, who is an icon in our industry because he has helped so many. And I don't want to give away too many details because we go into it during our conversation, but it was an absolute joy to have you on, David. Thank you for spending your time with me. I hope you really enjoy this conversation. Here it is. Hello, Mr. Geller. How are you?
I'm terrific with a side of awesome. How about you?
That's a great answer. I am well. Happy Saturday. Thank you so much for joining.
You betcha. Do you pronounce your name Nadja or Nadia?
Naja, you are correct.
Okay.
Yes, the first one. But any variation is acceptable. It's a weird name, so I don't mind.
We had a kitty cat a long time ago named Nadia, and we named her after Nadia Comaneci. Do you know who that
That
is?
is yes, actually, I'm also named after her.
Good.
Yes. So I do know who that is.
Okay.
I'm Brazilian, and so my mom wanted to change the I out for a J because it was a little easier for Brazilians to pronounce.
Well, okay. That turns out well. So in high school and elementary, did you do any gymnastics?
A little bit in
Okay.
elementary, and then I quickly shifted over to speech and debate, which is
Okay.
a bit of what informed this background here. I like to talk to people
Well, I
and
see
connect
your
face to
bench
face.
behind you with the scope.
Sure thing.
Nice
Yes, a
setup.
couple.
Do you have a laser
Thank you.
welder?
I do not.
Christmas present coming up.
That's quite the Christmas present.
It is.
I've only actually been at the bench for about 6 months.
So where'd you get your training?
I am studying under Brady Mesh, who is a fantastic hand fabricator and engraver up in Evergreen, Colorado. And then I take a lot of classes at Boulder Metalsmithing Association in Boulder from Chapin Diamond. And then I also have a few classes at Arapahoe Community College because they have a studio set up there, but not as consistently as I'm at the other two locations. Yes. Yes. And you, sir, I have heard your name ever since I joined the industry 5 years ago. I started in sales. And so obviously what I was doing at a repair counter was very informed by your career. Can you talk to me about from my research, a 14th generation jeweler? Is that correct?
That's right. That's right. So there's four siblings in my family. There's just two of us left, me and my younger brother, Michael. And when I was about 8 or 10, I'm told, I never saw it, I'll try to look for it. My father had our family tree traced. And it was when newspaper was big, in Sunday, there used to be a small magazine that was inserted. Supposedly, the story was in the magazine. I went down to the newspaper, had to look through microfiche. I could never find it. But I'm told that I'm in Atlanta. My father and grandfather worked in New York on the Bowery, which was the first jewelry district before it moved over to 47th Street. So my father in 39 came to Atlanta. So it comes from Atlanta, New York. Then my father and grandfather happens to be from Ukraine, Russia. So they came from Russia, Atlanta, New York, Russia, Spain, France, and England. It goes back 500 years.
Wow.
So my father and grandfather worked side by side. They were diamond setters. When my father moved to Atlanta, he started a trade shop, hired jewelers, and he built his business from a trade shop up to, at one time, he had 15 jewelers manufacturing, and he had 6 salesmen on the road traveling throughout the Southeast selling mom and pop stores. When I was 10, I came to work during the summers and started to do things in the shop and learn to be a jeweler. My brother, who's 5 years younger, when he was 8, he came there. So then when I turned 16, I got a car for one reason, and that was to come to work after school. So that's how I got my start.
Yeah. And you have created this book, this Geller Blue Book, as a massive part of your legacy. For those who don't know or those who aren't a part of the jewelry industry, Mr. Geller here basically created the pricing guide for repairs and alterations to jewelry and helped jewelers create sustainable businesses. And that was sort of why I initially reached out, was because
There you go.
Yes, and it's gone through many variations, it's gone through reprints and all of this, so you have kind of been a pioneer in this space, and was there an initial do you remember the day when you realized, "Hey, I have to make this book," or did it just come about out of need?
I was sitting across from an IRS agent who said, I have a lien on your house and your business. And if you miss another tax payment, I'm going to take it all. So, yes, there was a day of which I knew I had to do something. So, my father and I didn't get along well at all. And he wanted me to be on the road traveling, my little brother to be in the shop. I had already been kicked around in high school from him once. On the road, he threatened to beat the tar out of me. I got on a Greyhound bus, came home, took my stuff, moved in with an uncle and aunt. So no one in Atlanta, I was 19, no one would hire me because my father. So it took a couple of years, and Neiman Marcus opened up their first retail store east of the Mississippi River in like 1970 or 71, I don't remember. So I applied for the job as a jeweler and I got it. So I worked at Neiman Marcus, and this was when gold was $65 an ounce. So for me to set a $30,000, $50,000 emerald or diamond was not uncommon. They sold a lot of 18-karat mesh watch bands that I would weld onto a case. So at $65 an ounce, a watch band was $5,000. So that was the kind of stuff I did then. Then I got hired by a custom design store here in Atlanta. I worked there for a year. And then August of 74, I started my own trade shop. So I started doing work for other jewelry stores. And I had taken a copy of my father's wholesale price list when I opened up my little trade shop. And then I started doing what other people did, call around town and see what you charge to do a tip, size a ring, put on a clasp or whatever. So I did wholesale trade work for about 3 to 5 years, and I changed over and decided it was crazy to charge your store $3.50, size a ring smaller, wait 2 to 3 months to get paid. I could go retail and charge $7 or $8 and get paid that day. So again, I took my father's list and I called around town, and then I started hiring jewelers, and it just never had enough money. We always had debt because I had no idea how to charge. So I had gone through 2 CPAs, and I complained to them. I told one guy, now this is before computers even started. I said, you come by once a month, you pick up my bank statements, my stubs, and you drop it back off and you charge me, and I can't pay my bills. I'm looking for help. He says, well, if you need help, I'd have to charge you more. So in 1986, I had 5 jewelers, a waxer, a polisher, 4 or 5 salespeople. We did $830,000 for the year, $100,000 for Christmas. My whole life, 75% of our income came from the shop. We didn't sell that much for the case. December of 86, after doing $300,000 for December, we owed $250,000 accounts payable, owed $65,000 to IRS for your payroll taxes I didn't send in, $25,000 for the state of Georgia for the same reason. So everybody stays on Christmas Eve for what? Christmas bonus. So I fired half the company. So I had 16 people, I let 8 go. Between Christmas and New Year's, I paid what I could. I started over January 1st with $125 in the checkbook. And I had to send some of the work out because I let some of the jewelers go. So anyway, that summer, the IRS put a lien on my house and the business because of the payroll taxes I hadn't paid. So I'm crying in my soup, and there was a diamond setter in Atlanta. He says, I think I got someone who can help you. So he sent me his accountant. Ben had gone to high school with my little brother. Ben's a weird character. So 5 years earlier, Ben, an accountant, said, you know what? I hate accounting. I think I'll do something. And he got a hat, and he put 5 things in it he liked, and he pulled it out and he said, looks like I'm going to be a watchmaker. And he went and bought 2 books on watch repair, went to the biggest store in town. You're too young to remember, but a long time ago, there was a catalog house called Service Merchandise. And so they sold things on catalog, and they sold jewelry and diamonds. So he went there and said, I want to do your watch repair. They said, we are a year backlog. If you can get it done in a month, you got it. He did. He got it. For 5 years, he's doing watch repair. And then he opened up a little place in the bottom of an office building. And he did that. And then I don't know if you deal with your accountant. Accountants don't do really good with the public. So he said, the hell with them. and he went back to being an accountant. And this is who my friend sent me. So the first thing he did was do something I was scared to death. He went down to the IRS and made a payment arrangement. IRS sat me at the table. If you miss one payment, your house and your business is mine. So for 5 years to pay all those people off and pay off the accounts payable. Anyway, that was summer of 87, and I was paying the jewelers $9 to $11 an hour. I paid the salespeople the same, and they got 1 or 2% commission. And Ben said, you know what? We're going to have to put the jewelers on piecework. That's the only way to know your cost. Stellar, I took their parts and I multiplied it times 3. But any jewelry store paying a jeweler salary hourly, they have no idea how much it costs to size a ring, solder a chain, send it. They have no clue. No clue. So Ben said, go to Office Depot, and I had now been back to hiring 5 jewelers. I bought every jeweler a time clock, the old-fashioned time clock, where you stuck the card in and it clicked, and they clocked in and out in the back of the envelope. And so it took about 6 months, and now I had an idea of how long it took to do a job. And what I found was paying a jeweler, paying you, Nadia, 8 hours a day, you only produce 5.5 hours worth of work. So if it said that you took an hour to do a job, we figured an hour and a quarter. So if we charge, and Ben said, your cost should be 26%. So think a fourth. And once you add in matching FICA, Medicare, workers' comp, vacation, health insurance, and all that, if I pay you $10 an hour, you end up costing 25% more, $12.50. So he said, okay, so if it's $12.50, we're going to multiply it times 3, and we'll charge $36 for the solder. So the $10 we charged, the jeweler got $2.60. And the $2.60 with 25% more. I know this is a lot of numbers. So it ended up costing us 3.25. Triple, that's how we got to $10. So we started doing that. And after a couple of months, first off, when I did that, on Monday, I made the announcement to 5 jewelers. We're not paying you hourly anymore. We're paying you 26% of what we charge. Now remember, Nadia, we were giving 26% of the old stupid prices. And so some of them paid the jewelers well, and some of the jewelers said, you know what, I'm not going to work here if you're going to pay me this. It's not enough money. And on Monday, I said, we're going to start this commission. And on Saturday, I had 2. 3 people who left knew they were overpaid, and the 2 who stayed knew they were underpaid. Within 6 months, the 2 guys who stayed, and I say guys, you may like this. In most stores, there's a large minority of female jewelers, but I have found female jewelers typically are better than male jewelers. They don't fart around, they do their work, they do better, they clean work and all that. So the few that I had did a great job. But anyway, the 2 who stayed, who were making $9 to $11 an hour, within 6 months, they were averaging $16 an hour. And this is in 1987. But then they said, you know, that job and that job and that job, it doesn't pay enough. So I just, instead of I just said, you know what? I'm just going to figure in 1987, a jeweler should be making 30 grand a year, which is 15 an hour. So if a job paid them on the average 10 or 9 or 12, I raised what I was going to pay them. So if it paid them $3 and they were unhappy, I changed it to 5. Because what most stores do and what I did, I want to see how low I can pay you, Nadia, because I think that's the only way to make money. So I changed it to let's pay the jeweler a very good wage and just mark them up like they're sitting in the showcase and make the customer pay. So it took me 2.5 years. I started over 3 times to put this book together. And when I finally finished it, it's a pretty book.
It is beautiful.
Yeah, but it was it was a spiral bound. I made the 3-ring binder so we could take the pages and replace them. But anyway, in 1980, and I wasn't selling the book, 1988, I had 40 copies printed. I only had a 1,500 square foot store. And I had printed on there the name of every salesperson. Every salesperson had a book. Every place you could stand or sit had a book. The shop had a book. Every phone had a book. We spent 6 months training them in the book because I didn't want them to guess at it. So after putting the book in place, our sales went up in 6 months 35%. And we turned around and started being profitable. Because now if I paid you $10 to solder a chain, we got 40. If it took you 10 minutes to solder a chain, you got $10, you're making 30 an hour. If it took you an hour, you made $10, sorry. But the large majority of the jewelers increased their income terrifically. And then in 91, I put the sales staff on 100% commission, 10%. They got 10% on diamonds, on rings, repairs, custom watch batteries, and sales went up another 35%. So that's how the book got started. It got started because the IRS agent was going to take everything I owned. It was Ben who got me to do the time study. And so, I had these sheets before I had Excel of what it took to do every single procedure. Mike, I'll tell you this, I'll quit talking and let you ask another question. You might find this funny. If you ask Matt Stullett, he knows me. I've spoken at Vegas, RJO, IJO. I've spoken at 3/4 of all the state associations. I've spoken at Stellar 2 or 3 times. And he told me a long time ago, I asked him, why did you use a 3-time markup in your catalog? And this is what he said. David, I figured most jewelers are going to discount. So if I do a 3-time, they'll discount it. They'll at least get Keystone, which is double. Well, he never told me that. So in my book, I used a 3-time markup from him, and that's what we used on the Libra. And so the book has been based upon paying a jeweler good wages. So I'll tell you this, I sold the store in January 2000 to my highest paid salesperson, and it's still running. 1999 was the last year I had the store. So that's 25 years ago. And not to the penny, but I remember the W-2s for all 5 jewelers. 32,000, 39,000, 52, and 61,000. That's what they made 25 years ago.
Yes.
Salespeople made the same amount of money as they were 100% commission as well. So go ahead, ask some more questions, my dear.
Well, I just feel like it's such an assumption that people get into jewelry for the money. And while you can make good money in jewelry, you need to be organized. It so often comes down to really tracking price, time, energy, materials, tools. It's so complicated and there's so many nuances. And very often it takes a really long time to build up to that. And I think what you did in the gift that you gave so many stores, and I've been the receiver of that, because what you did was you created a standard. And while some people charge more, a few people charge less, depending on where they are in the country, you kind of gifted this average, this point. You created a soundboard for these small businesses to evaluate their pricing structure. And it brought, when you have a living wage, when you have a wage that people can live on, it brings dignity to their lives. And that is what I think is so magical about what you did and how you created it and what it went out into the world to do, right? Because there's also this concept of like a bit of the death to the author, right? So you create something and you put it out into the world, and then it exists on its own. It has its own life separate from you, even though it's titled the Geller Blue Book. And I think that when you evaluate the impact that book has had, it is nothing shy of a gift.
First, I want to tell you, I hate to disagree with you. I don't think most people get in the jewelry business because of money. They would love to make good money, but tell me if you're the same thing as me. First off, you started as an adult, right? As a bench. Okay, so I started when I was 10, and I didn't have a choice. My father was going to make us do this. But I went out on my own because I wanted to be in charge. So I have a grandson who's 16, and for the last 3 years, he's been flying airplanes. So he's been learning to fly a Cessna. And he got his driver's license already. In September, at 17, he'll get his pilot's license. He's already flown by himself solo. I wanted to have what's behind you. I wanted to be my own boss of my own bench. I assumed money would follow. I was wrong, but I liked what I was doing. My third location, my nephew and I built the store. So we rented the space. We put up the sheetrock and electrical. I like jewelry because it doesn't take long to do something and be finished with it and be proud of what you did. It took 2.5 months to build the store. I made my own. I made this ring, and it's got a jeweler sitting at the bench.
Oh, that's cool.
So I know a couple hours for the wax. I had one of my people do the wax, but then we cast it, put it together. And so in an afternoon, I soldered the platinum plate on the top of the 18 karat and the other 18 karat, set all the diamonds and polished it. I enjoyed in a small amount of time getting something accomplished. So that's why I got into it.
Yeah. Well, and just to clarify, I got into it because I had a girlfriend who was working at a marketing agency specifically only for small business jewelry stores come to me and tell me, I think you need to be a jeweler because this is a field that is creative, international. It has the people element. She knew me well enough to know that I was a social being and needed to be in something that was collaborative and also have this degree of art and forming and new design, and then to also, meet people from all over the world. So that's kind of all of that blended together created at least the foundation of the industry that I knew I wanted to go in. And then I've jumped around from sales to bench.
To give you an idea about the book, you see it's out there. I sold the store January 2000. I was in a jewelry management group a while back. And this group, they're disbanded now, but they had 5 or 6 groups and they'd have 12 or 15 jewelry stores across the country in it. So you were never in the same city for competition. And I was the only jeweler that was mostly shop and custom. When I sold the store in January of 2000, we did 1.8 million, 450,000 came from the showcase. We did 1.5 million from the shop. And most stores today, the point of sale program prints the envelope and it's in a Ziploc bag. But when I had my store, we bought old fashioned envelopes with 2-part stuff. They come 1,000 to a box. And 1999, the last year I had the store, we went through 9 boxes, 9,000 jobs that year. And that doesn't count the jobs that we didn't do an envelope. So anyway, about 3 or 4 years prior to selling the store, whenever we went to Vegas for a convention or buying show, I brought the book with me. And people, I'm sure you sit with other people, how much do you charge to solder's ring, put on a check? So I just took out my book. Well, we charge this. And then they go, where'd you get that? I said, I make it. I want to buy a copy. And so it just started as a side business. The management group that I was with, you could spend, and this is in 96, 97, you could spend $5,000 to spend a day with the owner for business advice. So I go up there for my $5,000 day, and he says, how you doing? And I talk, and he says, you don't seem very enthused. I said, well, I've been doing this since I'm 10 years old. I'm in my fees. So I'm tired. He says, well, everybody knows about your book. Why don't you sell the book, sell the store, and start selling the book? And that's what I did. So I actually been doing 2 things. My wife and I have been selling the book, and I've now turned the book over to my nephew, Jonathan, who is the CEO of my brother's 3 jewelry stores. And then I help people with QuickBooks and their accounting. So anyway, I started then doing consulting and speaking and all that. And it ends up being, Nadia, that there's 14,000 jewelry companies in America. You might be one. My store is one. My brother's store has 3. He's one. K Jewelers is one. There's 14,000 jewelry stores in America. We reach over 6,000 in States, Canada, Australia, and a few in Europe.
Yeah. It's a pretty far reach.
It's pretty far reach.
Yeah. And you looking over the entirety of your career, because you've been in the industry, as you said, for so long. What are some of the most significant changes you have observed in the jewelry industry in your during?
I guess one of the biggest is markup. So my mentor, had my mother died when I was a senior in high school. My father and I never got along. On my mother's side, there's 3 uncles, and I've lived with all of them after I left my father. My uncle Irv was the #1 car salesman every place he went. And after World War II, he came out and he started selling cars in the 50s. And he told me in the 50s, everybody paid sticker Whatever was on the window is what you paid. And then after a couple of years, the Kelly Blue Book came out and people started negotiating that. Then people started to get on the internet, they started finding out what a car costs. And now you start dickering on how much margin the car dealer can make. Well, it used to be in the 50s and 60s, if you didn't make double or triple on a 1 carat diamond, your friends would run you out of town. You were just considered an idiot if you couldn't make double or triple. It was typical in the 50s, 60s, maybe the early 70s, keystone on every diamond you ever sold or better, 3 to 5 time markup on color stones, 5 to 10 time markup on gold chain. Well, now with all the internet and all that stuff's come around for your age group, the margin is so much lower. So margin is the biggest thing, which has hurt another area. I help a lot of people with number crunching. And so if you buy it for 500, you sell it for 1,000. And the amount of inventory to keep is the amount of profit you make in a year. If you sell $1 million in jewelry and your profit's keystone, you make 500,000. The amount of inventory to keep is about 450 to 550. Well, in the olden days, when you sell a million and it costs you 350, you could buy too much inventory. It didn't matter. It's like having a sugar daddy. Excuse me. Today, you can't do that. But many jewelry stores overbuy, and so they have a lot of debt. Excuse me. Hold on, let me get a sip.
Of course.
So margin's the biggest thing. Then the amount of inventory that they have. Many years before, a bench jeweler was well paid. The guy that trained me when I was 10 through 19 years old at my father's place, when I left my father, this man who lived up the street from me was making $6 an hour. He could afford a brick home. His wife worked at our high school part-time as a cashier, and he worked on the side doing work for other stores, and he was able to put his kids through college. So in the realm of inflation, all that was fine. Today, it's not that way. But because of, you know what the Rappaport list is?
Yes.
Well, that's hurt the margins of jewelry stores. Well, now on the internet, on Facebook, jewelers helping jewelers, bench jewelers helping bench jewelers, people talk about how much they're paid. Jewelers' paychecks have risen over the last 5 or 7 years because now it's very visible. So it is getting better. My book's based upon 45 to 70,000 a year to pay a bench jeweler. I know lots of stores paying 60, 80, 90, 100 a year.
Yes, I do too. What advice would you give to a brand new jeweler coming into the industry?
There's not an awful lot of them, so I won't ask your age, but you're an oddball thing here. But when I was in your age group, lots of people wanted to be a jeweler. My friends in high school and personal friends. I've trained 2 friends to be a jeweler. But today, when anybody graduates high school, there's computers and AI and there's all kinds of stuff, and people just don't think about it. So when you get to be a jeweler, probably the best thing is to get well-trained quickly. There's not an awful lot of schools around. In Tennessee, one of the best ones is New Approach School. I don't know if you're familiar with them.
My first interview was with Jason Marchiafava, who's one of the founders there.
Yeah, okay. So New Approach, that's a 90-day class. There's Stewart's Jeweler School in Florida, Paris Junior College in Texas. They have a 2-year program. And there's a couple others on the West Coast. If my father was teaching me, but I didn't mention this, my father was a diamond setter. I saw him one time size a ring, butchered it, just butchered it. And so the only thing my father taught me, the only thing he could teach me, was bead setting. I wish as a young person I had gone to a school because it would have taken 5 years off my learning curve. So a lot of these schools like Blaine Lewis and Stewart, they have 1-week courses, basic repair, basic setting, advanced setting. That's what I would recommend for somebody. So didn't ask you the school that you're going to. Do they teach setting?
Yeah. And that's kind of been the barrier to entry for me, is a lot of these schools are very expensive and I'm funding my education on my own. And so it's been it's difficult to break in. It was not as difficult to break into the sales world. It is really hard to up and become a jeweler, especially because I already have my bachelor's degree and I already went through all 4 years of college. And so this is just additional education. that I'm adding. And so, yeah, it's a bit of a minefield right now.
If you get a chance, take a basic setting and advanced setting. That will just push you beyond, because all the metalsmithing and fabrication that you're learning, it'll help you do, I don't know, 75% of everything you do at metal. But the setting is the other side. Many jewelers have a hard time setting a princess cut, a stone that's got 4 pointed corners. The way to set a pointed stone is not the way to set an oval or round or whatever. And I had 5 jewelers. My best jeweler, I had a shop foreman. He and I sat next to each other. We looked at every job coming in. We distributed them to the shop. And so we had someone in the office, and if they had to order parts, the office ordered them. I didn't need to be in that circle. Come to find out, after he broke 2 1-carat princess cuts, and they ordered the third, that's when I found out. And I found out he didn't know how to set a princess cut properly. So I trained him, and I have visited stores, and there's a lot of stores that a jeweler will chip it.
Yes.
So a new jeweler, I would highly recommend advanced training, even if it's only a 1-week course, particularly setting. And everybody, I'm sorry to tell you, everybody needs a laser welder.
That's okay. I don't take that personally.
Okay.
Yes, I have worked on a laser welder, and I'm actually in the process of getting additional training on a laser welder, working towards that, collaborating with someone to receive that kind of training. But owning one is a different beast versus going and borrowing one. I'm lucky and privileged enough to say that I have a lot of friends, and they have laser welders.
So good.
But I do not own one.
I'll tell you, in our book, everything's based upon doing it with a torch. A laser welder, there's 2 reasons to buy a laser welder. Number 1, you'll make more money because you'll be faster. So just to give a silly example, a lady brings in a charm bracelet with 10 charms to put on. If you're using a torch, you got borax it, solder it, rubber wheel the solder, take off the borax, polish it. If you use a laser welder, all you have to do is just a quick buff. You don't have to protect it with borax and all that. So you don't have to charge extra. It'll just go 3 to 5 times faster. On the other hand, if it requires a laser, you can charge more. In our book, if it requires a laser, we charge 50% more. So you know what Princess Diana's engagement ring looks like? It's an oval blue sapphire, diamonds around it with prongs, an under gallery. If it was an emerald and it needed some tipping or under gallery broke, you'd have to charge it. Take out this emerald, do the welding, put it back in. With a laser welder, you can just do it. Don't take out the stone. It'll go faster, but we will charge 50% more because it saves the customer from having to have the stone removed.
Yes, for shops that do a lot of volume, the laser welder always ends up paying for itself. I'm dedicating a year of my life here to just studying and absorbing. I was able to sort of bracket that time for myself, and so my priority right now is to just learn and exactly what you said, learn quickly. And that's why I'm kind of honing in and studying as much as possible in this particular season of my life, when it's kind of the only responsibility I have.
And the other thing a new jeweler should learn is CAD count.
I am currently enrolled in a CAD class, and it is a difficult conversation for me because I am almost exclusively learning and attracted to hand fabrication. And so I am trying to find a mesh or place where I understand CAD and can use it if I need to, but it's not my sole skill set. I really, really care about being able to sit at the bench and make it from poured ingot all the way through with my hand.
There's a place for everything. But if you're really good in CAD, because it'll go faster, your income could easily go up 10 to 25,000 more a year from a store that would want to hire somebody for that. But I just want to put that out.
I think people need to hear that. I think that's, especially when you're talking about volume, there's not a ROI in hand fabrication that there is in CAD. And there's absolutely that place for it. I think for me, my personal approach is a bit more of an artisan jeweler approach, where I need to be able to make everything by hand. And that is just going to be the hill that I die on. But if I also, the thing is, if my husband and I'm Brazilian. And so we've talked about at some point in time, potentially going and moving to Brazil for a season, 2 or 3 years. And I can't bring my shop with me there. And so my way of kind of continuing to participate in the industry, participate to make more money, is to also become good at CAD and then be able to, outsource or be able to do jobs via contract for other people. But when it comes to, I almost feel like I want my CAD work to fund my hand fabrication because I have fun. I do it
Okay.
for the love of it and the joy of exactly what you said, like making something by hand. And that is the dream of
Good, good, good. Excellent, excellent.
it would be to have something, a wheel rolling well enough where I understand CAD and can do it. And I feel like the best CAD designers have to be bench jewelers. The ones that have no understanding of the bench make really faulty designs.
You're absolutely 100% correct. They have to understand how things go together. They have to understand setting. They have to understand the diamond, how it sits in there and the prongs and the bead setting and all. Yeah, they have to be able to do bench to be real good CAD. There's a couple of companies that I know that they have people doing CAD who've never done bench, and they're trained in a certain way. But yeah, overall, much better if you can do both.
Right. Yes. Um, can you discuss some of the challenges that you faced in your career? I know you talked a little bit about IRS and wanting to kind of, rebuild the system, but what are some of the things that you experienced just day to day in your store?
Well, making money was the first thing, and that was solved with a book because my cost was fixed. I paid you $10, we charged 40. The only thing about the $10, it had to make you happy. If it made you happy, great. Give me 30 seconds, I'll answer your question. Every couple of years when I had the store, I'd take all 5 jewelers out and the waxer to dinner with a book, and I go, I'm going to raise the prices 10 or 15%. What do you think? And they would say, you know what? That's great, but on this one job, it doesn't pay enough. Okay, so we raised the price even higher to make the jeweler happy. So that was kind of fixed. The next problem with the store was motivating the sales staff. The jewelers are motivated by money. I don't know if you ever remember I kind of forgot what the thing is called. The little player you put on your hip with CDs to listen to music.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. They all bought that. They didn't
The
want to talk
Walkman.
to anybody. Yes, Walkman. Thank you. So they were producing like crazy. Now, the sales staff, when I put this book out on the counter, it increased our prices 35%. Do you know who complained the most about raising our prices?
Probably not the customer.
It was the sales staff. No one will pay that. So my next problem was training. So I brought a trainer to train me. And what we ended up doing was every other Friday, twice a month, the staff had to come in a half hour early, get set up, and we had a whole hour for training. I divided the training into 4 15-minute segments. The first 15 minutes was on the book. Everybody get your book out. We're going to start on chapter 100, sizing. This is how we size a ring. This is the problems. This is what you need to look for. Check and tighten. This is why we charge more for 18 karat. This is why we charge more. This is what you say to a customer who says, oh my God, that's a lot. Turn to page 2. I could get through about 8 pages in 15 minutes. The next 15 minutes was on product knowledge. Nadia, what is your favorite gemstone?
Spinel.
Good. Next week, you're going to teach the staff about spinel. If I don't have any loose stones, my blessings, order them on memo. Get some printing handed out. You teach the staff where spinels come from, what the different qualities, how they're mined, and I want you to sell a spinel for custom in the meeting. And then whoever next 2 weeks later, they're going to do another stone or watch or something. The next 15 minutes was on salesmanship. So how to open a sale, close a sale, add-ons, customer complaints. And the last 15 minutes was just on store news. We did that every other week till I sold the store, which was about 9-10 years later. It took 6 months, and I got the sales staff. They could go into any store in America, and they would be the number one salesperson taking in repairs and custom. And they got paid on commission, so now they weren't, oh, that's a lot of money. You need this, Nadia. You need this ring. So sales training was the next thing. After that, it was advertising and marketing. For me, it was an easy choice. We had yellow pages. I had a newspaper ad every Saturday. We did postcards and direct mail, and we tried radio. Well, most everything I told you already is not today, so it's all the other social media and TV, radio, and all that kind of stuff. So that's something people are having to do today, and having a website do well. So it's training the staff. It was understanding our numbers. So it was easy to understand the numbers when I was paying commission. But that's when I started learning QuickBooks and getting that stuff right. And then the last thing, the way I was able to sell the store, I had other jewelers saying, will you come to my store and get my staff straight? So I was leaving, and I was having to leave the store and leave people in charge. And I was always from the aspect, I know it better than you. You're not as smart as me. And then I had to leave the store. And so amazingly, the people I thought couldn't do a good job, they did an awesome job. And the one guy who made the most money on commission, he's the one that bought the store. And everybody ran everything okay. That was the way I was able to sell the store, because the store ran well without me. And that's one of the things, for you, eventually, you won't be able to, quote, look at that. But for a jewelry store owner who have employees, that's the place they need to go towards, is doing it with it. The store could run without them.
Continuous training.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, I mentioned to you, some of the best jewelers have been women. And I don't travel anymore, but I used to go to about 18 stores a year over 15 years. I have found most well-run, profitable jewelry stores are run by females.
You're not the first jeweler to tell me that. And I've also worked in shops that are predominantly female jeweler run shops, and they are incredible. And I have nothing but just like googly eyes for their work. They are so incredible. They know how to finesse. And they kind of, whether they know it or not, really inspire me. And so, yeah, the community of female bench jewelers is quite small, but they do exist. And thank you for the encouragement. I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
You value that, and I think that others should as well. Yeah. Congratulations on your recent retirement.
Thank you. Thank you.
What are you most looking forward to now that you have entered this new phase of your life?
People ask me that. I'm almost finished reading every page on Facebook. Next week, I'm going to start at Instagram and get all the way to the bottom and finish that. And then I'll read everything on Google. I told that to a friend of mine, and she said, you can get to the end of Instagram? Yeah, at the very bottom, it'll say end. And she believed me. Not quite sure what I'm going to do yet.
I think it'll take a few years just to get through the Jewelers Helping Jewelers page.
For sure, for sure.
We love that page. This is actually, thank you to Jewelers Helping Jewelers. That's actually what was able to connect David and I today. So, David, you are so wonderful, and you've been such a gift to our community, and I'm very grateful and humbled that you were kind enough to jump on this call with me. Just one last question for you. Who would you like to nominate to be my next guest on this podcast?
Joel McFadden is one. He's a bench jeweler, and he's been with me when I go to the in-store shows. He runs the bench competition, so he's a very excellent jeweler. Green Lake Jewelry Works. Go to that website, Green Lake Jewelry Works.
Are they the one in Seattle?
Are you familiar with them?
I am.
The guy's name, let's see if I can look it up real quick, is Tim.
Yeah, I had a coworker who used to be a designer for them.
I don't have his last name. I should remember it.
But that's okay. Tim from Green Lake.
Tim. Anyway, if you ever have a chance to go visit, he's got 2 stores. I think he bought a building that was a restaurant, and it's huge. Has very little in the showcase. He's got computer monitors, 15 of them lining the top. Jewelers and the CAD people are behind glass. You can see them. As you walk in the front door, they have a milling machine cutting a wax all the time. It's all about custom. And he worked for someone in Atlanta, told me one time he came and looked at my store to get an idea for some things. But he's done an absolute terrific job up there. And he sells custom all across the country. So he'd be a good one. Joel McFadden is one. So those are 2 I'd suggest.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. Thank you for your time. And I wish you a beautiful rest of your day. And I look forward to, let's stay in touch. I'd love to give you
Absolutely.
updates on my career as I
want to hear every bit of it. Every bit of it.
Thank you. Yeah, I do this thing where I try to send out, an email to all of the people that I've connected with with kind of like a 6-month update every 6 months as I progress. So
I
I will
want to
add to your
leave you
email.
with one last Geller saying. Repairs are not price sensitive, they are trust sensitive.
I love that.
Closing ratio on whatever you charge, doesn't matter if you charge 30 or 80, the closing ratio on repairs is 90% because it's a trust issue, not a price issue.
I would certainly feel that way with my heirlooms that I have
Yep.
received.
Yep.
Absolutely. Well,
Nadia, it's
thank you
been
so much.
great. I enjoyed it.
Me too. Have a beautiful rest of your day. Thank you so much for joining, and I look forward to connecting again.
Same here. Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye bye.